YouTube, what is good? So over the last 2 months, I've posted quite a few videos about the business side of freelance photography. And today I kind of want to wrap up all these questions in one video. Now, I'm definitely not going to stop talking about the business of photography. I love sharing all this information with you. I just kind of want to wrap up everything from the last 2 months because there were so many questions. Now, the first half of this video is going to be all about licensing. I posted a video about a $17,000 photo and video project. And on that video, I asked, do you want me to go into more detail on how licensing works for freelancers like us? And obviously the answer was yes. So the first half of the video, we're going to cover that. Then the second half of the video, we're going to go over all the other business questions that y'all asked me on Twitter when I announced that I was making this video. So first things first, hit the thumbs up button on this video. Let's get this video to 2,000 thumbs up quickly. I'm talking like within one day. If you've never hit the thumbs up button before, today is the day to do it. It helps out the video a lot. So licensing, here's how it works. Now understand, we're talking about freelance licensing. People like you and me, individuals who own a photo business, who get approached by a company, by an entity to use one of our photos for a number of things, for websites, for advertisements, for press products, doesn't matter. Basically, that's what a license is. Now, if you're, say, a photographer with a sports team or you work with a magazine, it's a completely different thing because that's sort of an industry. There's still avenues there for how stuff works. Everyone's represented different. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about individuals licensing out their photos. So if you are an individual licensing your photo, it's important to understand, one, that there's no formula to this. It's not A plus B equals C every time. There's a lot of nuance involved. Every situation is different. So the best way for me to explain this is to break down some situations that I've had in the past so you can take them and apply them to other situations that you might have. Now, even though licensing is very situational, there is one thing you always want to know when a client approaches you about a license. You want to know, how is the photo being used? That is the key question to always ask. You want to find out, are you going to be selling this? Is it going to be reproduced a million times? Is it going to only be used once? Will it be on your social? Will it be on your website? How is this photo going to be used? That is the key question with licensing, because this question allows you to ask more questions and really figure out the scope of the project, how your photography is going to be used, and helps you quote a price in the end. So the first example I have for y'all is from a few years back. I worked with this law firm. They approached me about licensing 8 photos for their website and for their social media. They just wanted to kind of spice up their internet presence. It wasn't anything too crazy. They weren't a giant company or anything like that, and their budget reflected it. They asked, what would the price be for these 8 photos? At the time, I was using a basic licensing rate for web photos of $200 a photo. It turned out their budget was $1,500, so we were pretty much in a perfect spot. I ended up taking $100 off the price for these 8 photos. Now, to license these out and get everything, on good terms, I actually went to a law firm. It's kind of funny. I'm working with a law firm, had to find a lawyer. The agreement was very basic. It was straightforward. We laid out the terms of this agreement for 1 year, meaning that after 1 year, they would have to pay me the same amount of money, or they would have to stop using the photos. If not, I could technically sue them. Also, in this agreement, we said these photos are only for website and social media. If they're used outside of these terms, once again, I can technically ask for more money. Pretty basic licensing stuff. From there, they signed the agreement. They got their photos. I got paid. Everyone was happy. This was a pretty basic web licensing scenario. Now, here's the thing. A client could approach you with a budget of $1,000 for 10 photos, and you have to decide, are my photos worth $100 each? Yes or no. And if they're not, you just pass on that particular client. If they are, you can do the exact same thing and set up your license the exact same way. Now, remember, I'm not a financial expert or a law expert. So anything we're talking about in today's video, definitely recommend you go to a lawyer for consultation because they are professionals, and anything about money, definitely recommend you go to an accountant because they are professionals as well. So the second scenario today comes from this mega church in Atlanta. They're massive, and they approached me about a project where they wanted to use just one of my photos for their website, for some social media stuff, as well as all these flyers or like paper products that they were passing out to the patrons. I can't remember the specifics of this. It was a few years ago, but basically they just wanted to use this one photo as kind of a center photo for this 45-day campaign they were doing. Now, this was a little tricky because I wasn't sure how to price the license on this. So I went online, I did a little bit of research, and I found this advice about figuring out the budget or the number of times your photo is going to be replicated and then base your license off of this. So that's what I did. I asked them, how many times do you think you're going to print this particular photo on these flyers or pieces of paper that you're handing out to people who come to the church? They estimated about 20,000. So I did some basic math and said 20,000 times 50 cents a print is a budget of $10,000 for printing. 10% of that is $1,000. I feel like that's a pretty good amount for the license of this photo, especially because it's going to be printed so many times. So I quoted them $1,000 and I tacked on $500 because I wasn't sure if they were going to print the photo more. $20,000 was just an estimate, and I also wasn't sure how many times they were going to use the photo online, what exactly they were going to use it for. So to kind of cover that end and just make sure I was good, I added $500 to the quote. They agreed to $1,500, and luckily they've done a lot of licensing in the past, so they actually sent me the licensing agreement, which I reviewed. Everything looked good. We were all happy. They used the photo exactly how they said they were going to use for 45 days. I got paid. Everyone is happy. Now, here's the thing with that negotiation. Their budget easily could have been $3,000, and I didn't quote them enough. We'll never know, but I guess everyone was happy, and that's all that matters. But that's the whole nuance of this thing. I don't exactly know how much they're willing to pay. I'm just making an estimate based on what I think they're using as their budget, how I think everything is going to go, and I floated out a number and they agreed to it. Now, because this was a few years ago, in hindsight, what I would do different is I would float out a larger number, maybe 2,500, and see if they agreed to that first. If that was too far out of their budget, they would come down and we'd probably end up meeting back at that 1,500 number instead of me just sending 1,500 right away and them agreeing to it right away. It's kind of a red flag that they probably had more budget. Now, the third example is actually from that $17,000 photo and video project video. I'll link that in the description on here so you can see how I priced everything out in that video. But as far as the licensing piece went, all the media I made in this video was going to be used on my social media as well as the social media of the brand that I was working with. So we had a web component to this, but they also wanted to use the media as web advertising. Only web. They were never going to print anything. They were never going to reproduce it, but they did want to use it as banner ads as well as the video piece running in front of YouTube videos and Facebook videos and things like that. So I found myself in a situation I'd never been in before. I didn't really know how to price a web advertising campaign. So I did what I do anytime I have a question about licensing. I got on Google, I read a bunch of articles, I saw how other photographers do it, what people were contributing to the photo community, and I figured out I need to ask them what their total budget is for the advertising. Now, I asked, of course they didn't tell me what it was, but they did give me a rough estimate of how many times it was going to be reproduced, how long they were going to use it, how everything was going to go. Still, I didn't exactly know what to price it at, so I just floated out a number that I felt happy with. It was a very large number, and they came back saying that's a little bit high, it's a little out of our budget, what about this? We went back and forth and actually settled on the number that I wanted to get paid on this. Who knows if I got a good deal? The only way I'll ever find out is if one of them quits, we go and get coffee, and then they break down to me that, hey, you actually got ripped off, or you charged us more than we wanted to, and we had to find a middle ground. Who knows? That's the whole thing with licensing. It's a lot of give and take. You know, the client wants to pay one price, you want to get paid a certain thing, and usually you end up in the middle. So when it comes to negotiations like this, a big piece of advice I have is don't be the first person to quote a price. And if you are the first person to throw a price out there, make sure it far exceeds what you actually want to get paid. Float out a big number so there's room for negotiation. Back to the church example that I had, that kind of went bad because I quoted the exact number that I wanted right away. They agreed to it right away, which means I was probably off. They probably had more money. I probably gave them a deal on that. Ideally, I should have floated out like $3,000 so they could come down and we could get to a number we were both happy with. Negotiating 101, and you can do your own research on negotiations and things like that. And also there are some services out there that allow you to get documents for things like freelance, things like contracts, things like licensing agreements. I've never used these services, but I know they exist, so you can do some research on that yourself. So that's pretty much everything I want to talk about when it comes to licensing. Just remember, there's no yes or no cut and dry way to do it. It's not A plus B equals C every time. It's about the client having a certain budget, you wanting a certain amount of money, negotiating and figuring out what the value is of your photography, because at the end of the day, photography doesn't necessarily always have a value. It's controlled by supply and demand a lot of the time. So here we go on these questions. These were asked on my Twitter. If you're not following me on social media, Instagram and Twitter are at Evan Ranft. That's where I announce stuff like this when I'm going to do Q&A videos or anything else related to the channel. It usually gets announced there. So the first question, where to go to find basic contacts for different types of photography? Honestly, I think your contacts kind of grow over time. My biggest piece of advice would be take as many actions as you possibly can, both online and in real life, to let people know that you are a photographer and put yourself in positions to start making the types of photos that you want to make as work. That is the key. So let's say you want to do nature lifestyle photography. Find groups of people who go hiking yourself, make these photos, make the photos for free. Tell the people who you're making the photos of, hey, share those, tag me in it, and start building this reputation as being the person making the types of photos that you eventually want to get paid for, and the contacts will come and find you. You can also use social media, you can use LinkedIn, you can use internet networking to start making it easier for these contacts to find you. But I don't necessarily think that there's this like magical marketplace on the internet or this Rolodex that you can go through where you just find names of people who are willing to give you jobs. That's not really how it works. Think about if you need something done in your house, you're going to call like the handyman who worked for your friend who did a good job and not the random handyman who emailed you. But use the internet and make yourself as visible as possible and take as many actions as possible, and the contacts will start to find you. What is the best place to start? Landscape for stock photography, headshots for portraits, or headshots/portraits for individuals. Why can't you do both at the same time? What I would recommend, go on your weekend trip, make your landscape photos, put them on the stock photography site, and then make your headshots and portraits all week. Those two things can work together and you can actually make money at the exact same time. Here we go. This is like a long thread. Let me find the top of it. When can someone begin to charge more for photo shoots? Like how much is too much or too little for the first year, second year, third year, etc.? This is thinking in a box. You're thinking on the corporate system. You're thinking like raises. Oh, I've been here 2 years, I should get a raise. That's not how it works. This is a supply and demand market, okay? If there's a lot of demand for your product, for your photography, you can charge more because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. That would be how I judge when it's time to start charging more, is how much time do you have? Is your time extremely limited? Are you one of these photographers who's booked for an entire year? You're booked 6 months out? Because if you are, you can charge more for your product because there's more of a demand for it. You see, it's not a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. It's not, am I charging too much? Am I charging too little? It's just about what the demand is. You know, you could put a price out there of a photo shoot for $200, and if someone says, I'm not paying that, they're not paying it. But that same photo shoot, you could say $200 and someone thinks it's worth $500 and they consider it a deal. You see, there's no like set in stone way to do this. It's just based on demand. So I would say the less time you have, the busier you get, probably means you can start charging more for whatever it is you're doing. That's what you see a lot in wedding photography, especially. How detailed are your proposals? My proposals are more detailed the bigger the project is. So if it's a huge project with a big budget, with a lot of stuff, moving parts and all that, I do a keynote presentation. I'll make it on my Mac. Everything is laid out. It's very specific. I break everything down. If it's just like an afternoon photo shoot or something more basic, we just email back and forth. That's the proposal. How could we get to shoot with bigger companies like Adidas, Vogue, Nike, etc.? I would say exactly what I said to the last person about contacts. Start building a reputation in the direction you want to go. You want to start photographing shoes, you want to work with Nike, make lifestyle shoots. Go out with your friends, have them wear Nikes, create your own fake lookbooks, share them online. If your friends post them, tag them in it, reach out to models, start building this network and this reputation. That is what I did in Atlanta. I did so many free photo shoots. Everyone I made photos of, I'd say, hey, post this online. You can have it for free. Just tag me in it. And I started building a reputation that way. I've actually done shoots with a large shoe company before, not Nike or Adidas, but one of the big guys up there. And the contact I have at that particular brand, I met through something outside of shoes. He was actually in Atlanta for a conference. He wanted to know some of the spots around the city. I took him around. We hung out, we got along, and then a few years later, he actually moved to a different company, which is the one that I worked with. They had some extra budget. He hit me up saying, hey, you want to do a project? We did, and that is exactly how it went. So the contact there was built through me having an online presence. That's how he found me, and then it eventually led to this job in a way I never expected. So there's no cut and dry thing you can do. Just make yourself as visible as possible and take as many actions as you can in a direction of wherever it is you want to go and start getting paid for. So this question is how to make yourself visible. That actually works really well off of what I just talked about. In a country where the market is competitive and difficult to find anything in general. Greetings from Estonia. Thank you for watching the channel. I would say exactly what I just said the last time. Take as many actions as you can in a direction that you want to go. So if you want to be a portrait photographer, take as many actions as you can to make yourself seem like someone who is making portraits. Do them for free. offer deals to people, run specials, make your websites about portrait, make your social media about portrait, your LinkedIn is about portrait. Every person you meet in real life, tell them, hey, I'm doing portraits, we're doing this, I'm offering specials, you know anybody. Start grinding and building a reputation for yourself, and those two things work hand in hand. So as you start building a reputation in person, it transfers over to your social media, and as you start building a reputation on social media, it transfers back over, and everything just builds up this way. I know it's not the fun answer, and I know it's not the easy answer, but the reality is photography is so saturated right now. So many people are trying to do this job. You have to be the person that outworks everyone else and takes enough action to make yourself more visible than all the competition out there. That's the reality of it. Next up, could you go more in depth on how you set aside your taxes each month? Is it easier / better to do month to month instead of waiting until the end of the year? So the way I set aside for taxes is any money that comes in, I immediately split it up. So what I'm doing in 2020, this is a new challenge I've set for myself, and it is proving to be more difficult than I thought. But I've always set aside 33% for taxes. So let's say easy math, I get $100 in from a client or something, I don't know, get $100 in. 33% of that, so $33 goes into my business savings account off top for taxes. And then I split that up. 33% goes into my personal saving, and then 33% goes into my checking account, my personal checking, like a commission. So that is what I'm doing right now. 1/3 of my income is what I'm living on. 1/3 is saved. 1/3 is set aside for taxes. So basically every time I get paid, I know I'm covered on the tax side of things. I would recommend probably doing that. I think it's the easiest way. Granted, go talk to an accountant and get some professional advice, because I'm definitely not a professional advisor on something like this. But I think it's easier to just break down every single payment and set the money aside right away instead of waiting till the end of the month, because money is so easy to spend. If you're not disciplined in setting it aside, you'll find yourself in a position where you probably won't have enough at the end of the year. I've had that happen years and years ago. Probably, I think the first year I ever did this full time, tax time came around and I was like, oh my God, I'm so screwed. I can't believe this. So my advice would be try to set everything aside. And I don't really, I'm not an expert on the tax benefits of an LLC. They told me to set one up, so I did. The main reason I set one up, though, is so I could get that business checking and savings account, so it's really easy to keep my money separated. My personal savings is one thing, and then my business savings is a completely other thing. So definitely talk to an accountant or a lawyer and start figuring out the benefits of an LLC and how to set up your accounts, but that is how I do it. There are plenty of people saying just put in the work and reach out to people all the time, but there's definitely luck involved there. What would you deem the best way to get clients in your niche and start charging? What I talked about, where you need to put yourself in a position to be the person to get paid for the jobs you want. So back to that nature lifestyle example. If you want to be paid as someone who makes photos of people out in nature, you make photos of people hiking, people kayaking, people living the life of an outdoorsman, you need to put yourself in the position to be that and start taking actions that lead you to those jobs. So start doing it for free, start hanging out with people who excel in this field, maybe people who are great rock climbers. Try to get photos of them, make free photos, have them post them online so you can take advantage of their network and start growing this way. It's all about putting yourself in the spot that you want to be in. That would be my biggest piece of advice. Even before you're getting paid, put yourself in the position to be making the photos that you want to get paid for and start growing a reputation that way. That is step one, and that's usually how it goes with a lot of people. You see people say all the time, oh, I just started doing this for fun because I was interested in it, and then eventually I got paid. That's because they're doing what they want anyways, regardless of the money, and then it leads to the money. What is the best piece of advice that you've been given and have stuck with and has been pretty true? Love this question. Best piece of advice I've ever gotten and I've stuck with is do not take advice from people below the situation that you're in. Only take advice from people who are in a position that you're striving to get to, because in a field like this, when you're doing something freelance, when you're building something for yourself, a lot of people are going to have things to say. It's important to ignore them and only listen to the people who are in the spot that you want to be in. That is the key, because they actually have experience. Do you feel having a site, of course, using Squarespace, shout out to you, is worth it before you have an actual first client? It could be, because you could use the site to promote yourself, but my advice would be get a few clients, get them to pay you, and then reinvest the money back into the site and build it from that. So that way you're not really, going into negative. You're just reinvesting money that you've made into something that grows your business even farther. Israel Adesanya or Yoel Romero. My boy Yoel Romero is going to win that. What is some good camera equipment to start out with? iPhone 11 Pro. Definitely that's the best camera, I think, right now for anyone starting in the content creation world. I find it difficult to have decent Instagram reach. I feel like the algorithm is not friendly towards Instagrammers. I think with all social media now, algorithms are based on engagement. So try to create something that engages with the people who follow you and maybe start interacting with accounts that have similar interests to you. So back to our nature lifestyle example that I've been using throughout this video. Make sure you're following nature lifestyle accounts. You're interacting with these people. You're liking their photos. You're commenting. So when they come to your page, which is also nature and lifestyle stuff, they see what you're doing, they follow, they comment, and you start building this network of engagement that way, and it will help your algorithm status. So I got 2 questions about making photos outside of kind of what you normally do. So I'm going to end it with this question right here to cover that topic. Does shooting many types of photography lower your chances of certain companies accepting you because you don't fully specialize in the type of photography they require? As far as, just making photography for fun, do whatever you want. That's completely fine. Photograph everything. I definitely recommend it. But if you're trying to build a brand online and a reputation for yourself as a professional, it may work well to just start with one area and grow that as your specialty and promote that as the thing you're great at, so the clients who are looking for that particular thing identify you as someone who is really good at it. So that's everything today. That's all the questions. That's everything about business. That's licensing. That's taxes. That's accounting. Remember, I'm not a financial expert. I am not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer. Talk to professionals. Get them to help you out. But that is everything. I know that is the business Q&A and licensing video. Thank you guys for watching today. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not yet. Y'all are the truth. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.